we're sketching today. Essentially what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be taking a look at your sketches. I'm going to give you what I think you need to hear as a student. I only graduated not that long ago, and I still have that student mentality. Hearing things from a student or even a former student, you can understand it differently as opposed to if it's coming from a professor. I'm going to be taking a look at 5 sketches from 5 people. In this case, Daniella, Elizabeth, Ethan, Isaac, and Nav. I'm going to be taking a look at one of each of your sketches. We're basically just going to see what's working really well and then what we can also improve upon, because that's important. Another thing, I'm not an expert and I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm giving you, hopefully, what is going to be valuable feedback that you guys can take and go forward with and do some cool sketches with. First up is Daniella. Awesome sketch. It's great technical accuracy. And what I mean by that is all your line work is precise. There's no hairy lines, which is a good thing to see. But it's also a good effort that you've taken to construct the sketch in the way that you've done. You've gone through the effort of spacing things out along the bottom, doing those perspective lines, and then projecting everything upwards. So good job on that. I remember my sketches all had like the hairiest, grossest looking lines. So it's good that you're at that point right now. Going forward, what I would recommend would be try and implementing different types of line weight, because that's the one thing that I see when I look at the sketch. All the line weight is pretty consistent. Adding the line weight is another really easy, simple way for you to be able to make your sketch pop off the page. So I'll do a quick example, basically just really loosely sketching out one of the faucet taps that you had there. And I'm going to build my square plane on the bottom. Might be a bit exaggerated. I'm going to find the center point really loosely. And now we've got kind of a very basic ellipse shape in here. I'm going to project it up just a bit, and then we'll taper it up into another ellipse. Now this is not sketched with proper accuracy. That's another important thing to remember. This is an example for line weight. Figuring things out, and I'm thinking about where my light source is. In this case, I'm going to imagine that light is coming from here, coming in directly this way. That's where the shadow is going to be. But now I need to add the line weight to help things pop off the page. To this day, I still have hairy lines when I sketch. That's not the end of the world, but something I'd like to improve upon. This is a bit more of the way that I sketch personally, a bit more of my own personal style. Having these large chunks of black in here really help establish the form. You can see it's not the same thickness all the way across. It starts off really thick on the corner, but then it kind of fades out right near the end. You can see I'm going back this way, but I'm not returning in the other direction. Heavy line weight on this side in the shadow, light line weight on the right. So Daniella, awesome sketch. Thank you for your work. Thank you for putting in effort. On to the next one. Next person, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you've done the shavers, the razors, the things. And I think that the way you've sketched this and your sense of proportion in this sense is very strong. I know how big it is when I hold it in my hand. The size of the razor blade that you sketched is proportionally accurate to the handle and the rest of the detail features on the actual razor itself, which is a very good start and a very good step to have that understanding of proportional accuracy when you're sketching, because that is one of the fundamentals that you need to understand going forward. And it's also a really good attempt for detailing. There's a lot of these fine little ridges, and you've gone through the effort of putting each one of those little individual lines in there. Now, one thing I will get you with is construction. Projecting your construction will help you take this sketch to the next level. What I mean by that is essentially breaking the shaver down into its simplest components. And the way that I would approach this is very simple and just like this. And I'm just going to put the perspective going this way, bring it off just a little bit there. Now I'm establishing the width. I'm going to say it's going to be about that thin, right? So right there, I have it pretty much established. I'm going to project it upwards, and I'm going based off of your sketches as well. Bring these across, make sure everything lines up, following proper perspective. I'm going to take these points that I've established, bring them down just a bit on an angle, and what this is doing is it's just very loosely roughing out the form, giving myself room to construct the dimension and the size of the razor blade. You're going to see that it is a very basic rudimentary shape. But right there, that's the basic components, basic size of a shaver. It's just that simple little bit of construction that you can do, and you're good to go. Elizabeth, thank you for the sketch. Looks awesome. Just keep in mind, construct those lines. Okay, next one that we're gonna do, we're gonna look at Ethan's sketches. Man, gnarly human form sketch. Humans are just ridiculously difficult to draw. So I applaud you for that, big time. It's a stiff looking position that you've sketched. It looks like his back is just really tight, but I can see that in the sketch, which means it's obviously effectively been portrayed. Your foreshortening is pretty good. I would maybe make his head just a tad bigger. That's the only thing. One thing that you can do though is adding the line weight. Like I've said before, very helpful in establishing depth. And I'm pretty terrible at drawing people, so what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to take the rough form of the arm, show you an example of how I would add line weight to it, because I never really understood how line weight could be done properly until I saw it done and I watched it be sketched. That was an important thing. We'll start off, we have his shoulder a little bit here, so we've got one muscle here. And like I said, I'm not very good at humans, definitely not my strong suit, but it seems like you got a pretty good grasp on it. So see what I mean? It looks, I don't even know what that looks like. This point right here where the upper arm goes into the forearm area, there will be a shadow here. And that's one thing that I'm looking at your sketch with. Again, it's all the same line weight. Totally understand, and believe me, I did exactly the same thing. But an important thing to realize is to be cognizant and be aware of where you're adding this line weight. So obviously the line weight that goes up here along the upper side of his arm is going to be a lot lighter than the line weight that goes along the bottom. Putting a dark bottom line really puts in a lot of contrast and makes the sketch pop. I obviously don't want to make all the line weight along the top exactly the same. I'm going to do this like little tapering effect. Starts off a little dark in the middle, and then it kind of gets lighter towards the middle of the form. That kind of looks more like a leg now, to be honest. Get good at drawing people though, that's a very important thing. And right here where the thumb and the wrist area, I know that that's a point where my arm is turning like that. I'm thinking as I'm going of how I can use line weight to exemplify and showcase these things. And obviously this part right here, his hand's going to be perfectly reflecting the light, so I'm not really going to put much line weight there at all. What I may do here is just go back in, really make this stuff dark. Very dark along here, lighter along here. Ethan, thank you for the human sketch. It's really good to see that. Keep it up and see if you can take some of this line weight shenanigans and incorporate it into the sketch that you're doing. You can always improve and you can always get better, and that's an important thing to realize, an important thing to remember too. Isaac. Looking at Isaac's sketches now. Ooh, some cameras, right on. Isaac, these cameras turned out really, really well. Pat yourself on the back for that. I do like the varying line weight that you've included in the sketch as well, but don't be afraid to add more harsher, darker line weight to your sketches. Another thing, you're sketching in blue pen, which not my place to speak on it at all, but do the same sketches but in black pen. Realize that no matter how many times you go over a line in blue pen, it will never be as dark as a black pen. The front 3/4 view that you've done here, it's in the bottom right of your page. Looks great, and I can tell you've constructed it. I like the fact that you've left the lens off of it and you're showing the details inside. You have the image sensor that's been flipped down, which it's good that you're adding that level of details in sketches already. However, don't be afraid to spend the time and construct all the details of your sketch before you actually get started. So break it down into its simplest components, which is obviously a square or a rectangular form, like we'll sketch here. And this is also no particular camera, but you also have a lens that gets attached to this thing. But then how do you sketch a lens on here where it is also following the same perspective? It's kind of a tricky thing, but at the same time, it's also very simple. Sketching lips, you need a square plane. You guys know this. It's the same principles that we've been doing since week 1. I'm gonna find the center. I am going very fast with this. Got the square plane, broken it down. Sketch your ellipse. Following perspective lines, that's breaking it down into its simplest components. You've broken it down, now you can go in and start adding even more details. But the key is to break it down into its simplest components and understand those simple components. before you get going and start adding crazy detail. It's good that you are, but it's also good to just slow things down a little bit and think. So Isaac, thank you. Great sketches, keep it up, don't stop, and just keep learning. Enjoy the process. Final sketches that we're gonna look at, Nav. Ooh, another razor shaver sketch. I think you and Elizabeth should talk, if you aren't already, and just go back and forth with each other on how you're sketching these shavers and these products. Each of you can learn a lot from each other and especially through collaboration. The construction on this is gnarly. Even though it's only, say, week 8 or week 7 of the semester, that you're going through that much effort to construct it. So good job on that. You're breaking it down into its little individual parts. Keep training your eye to see that kind of a thing, because that is also very important. The only thing that I'm going to get you on is, I feel whatever the place where the blades sit, the shaver head, whatever it's called, is a bit thin. That's the only thing that I would say. It's a bit thin. That doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it's a bit thin. It is important to take a minute and just step back from it, hold it up, do one of these, put it in a mirror and look at it in a mirror. You get so used to looking at it from this one perspective, looking down at your desk, and as you're sketching, you can kind of lose sight of some things. I also appreciate your attention to detail with this sketch. Even the detail and contour lines for, maybe it's like a rubber grip or a rubber piece that's on the handle of the shaver. You've gone in and you've kind of highlighted where there's a little bit of a ridge, or you could probably see a little bit of a highlight on there. That's really good to see. One thing to help take your sketch again to the next level, and I feel like a broken record, is line weight. You need a range in your sketching line weight where you have really dark lines. For example, I'm just gonna sketch over top of this. I'm gonna very loosely just freehand the handle that you have here, kind of like that. For the sake of example and the sake of speed, we're just gonna say that it looks like that. In your sketch, most of the lines are all the same line. Now, I do understand it's only week 8 and it's not the end of the world, but to take things to the next level, this is what I would do. Again, thinking of where your light source is coming from. In this case, I'm gonna switch things up and I'm gonna have it come from the left side, which means still along the bottom, that's where a shadow is gonna be cast. But I'm not going in super dark right off the bat. This obviously does come with practice, so don't beat yourself up if you can't do that right away. With such an elegant form on the handle, you want the sketch to reflect that. If you sketch stiff and rigid, your sketch is gonna look the same way. So just chill out. Get a glass of orange juice or something. For the most part, a general amount of line weight built up, you can start going in and really beefing up these corners right in here, you know, like these little crannies where light is just ultimately going to disappear. You've added a little bit of a thickness to the rubber, which is great to see. I'm going to go in and do the same thing, just adding a little bit of weight to that. Just pay attention to how the pen is moving right here. It's always going back and forth in the same direction. I'm not doing that. There is what I think pretty decent example of some dynamic line weight. So Nav, keep up the great sketching. Thank you for sketching that razor, doing a good job of it, putting in the construction lines. Keep it up, don't stop, and let's see what else you can do. Compared to where I was in first year, you guys are doing really well. Sketch in a collaborative way. That's the important part. Collaboration is so important to the act of design. You need to have that there. So hopefully this gives you a chance to be able to see what your other classmates are capable of, and it also hopefully encourages you guys to collaborate with them. Don't be afraid to reach out to your classmates and get that collaboration, because that is so important. Line weight, line weight, line weight. It can't rush learning line weight, but you do need to practice it, because if you don't practice it, you're obviously not going to get much better at it. You're not going to get any better at it. If you aren't already, try sketching in a black pen, because a black pen will give you a better understanding of how your line weight is working on the page. And obviously you guys are still early in your industrial design journey, so don't worry, don't stress. I'm still learning even to this day, and I've been out of school now for a couple months, and I took this course 4 years ago. You may be thinking, what about my personal style when it comes to sketching? Like, that's important, isn't it? Yes, it's important. Don't worry about that right now. Worry about understanding the basics, the technical accuracy of things, because you need to know and understand the rules before you can break them. So thank you guys. Go sketch, do some cool stuff, make some cool things. Good luck. Keep it up.